One very common occurrence when it comes to presenting in front of your leadership is the phenomenon of shaking. And it can be a surefire way for people to obviously make the assumption that you are nervous. Now, while that's perfectly normal, we all get nervous from time to time. Often, if we let our sort of unconscious go unchecked and we have these symptoms on a regular basis, they can certainly compound and get out of hand. And so one of the things that we can really begin to take a look at is, what is that phenomenon? Why do we shake during presentations? And the obvious answer is that it's nerves. And one of the things that I want to say again and again is that shaking and getting nervous does not mean that there's something wrong with you or that you're broken. It's a very common occurrence. What we tend to do is make a bigger deal out of it than it really deserves. And so as we begin to create a story about our shaking and our nervousness, that story adds fuels to the fire and really perpetuates that behavior and that shakiness, that response. You know, there's a great quote by Sydney Banks. He said, "If all people did was learn not to be afraid of their own experience, that alone would change the world." And I love that quote, because what I hear him saying in that is that our experience is an internal creation, and it's being created from inside. And so in this context, if we have shaking hands, if we didn't fear that, what would happen? What would happen if we didn't fear the shaking? Now, what I hear in that idea of not fearing, what that means to me is not creating a story, not adding to the idea that this is a bad thing, or that there's something wrong with me, or that people are going to judge me. While some of that might be true, you know, the reality is we're not doing ourselves any favors by sort of compounding that and adding more story and self-judgment and critique to it. And so ultimately, if we can begin to understand that our experience of life from every single moment to moment is really being colored by what we're thinking in that moment, our ideas, our thoughts. Now, in the case of shaking, that is the result of a long-standing cycle of thought, a sort of circle of thought that we think again and again and again. And when we think these things again and again and again, they go from conscious to unconscious. They become a habit. We don't realize we're doing it. And then they show up in this physical way, in this case, trembling hands or shakiness. Now, this is why I really like to help my clients unwind those habits of thought. Really, it just means what we do is we get to a place where we can make the unconscious conscious. It becomes aware. We work with your subconscious mind to unravel those cycles of thought, to expose them and unravel them. But here's what you need to know. The more we can become aware of how our own thoughts can contribute to a story, the more we can begin to question our experience of reality in any given moment. In this case, if I'm feeling like I'm shaking and I'm no good and I'm gonna fall on my face and this presentation is not gonna go well, if I can stop and just question that reality for a moment, just creating enough of a space to kind of go, wow, maybe I'm not the only one that has shaky hands. Maybe and in that moment, something could come to you. When we let go of grasping on to our experience so tightly, we open space for new thought, for new ideas to come into our awareness. An example might be just to address it and to be honest about what you're experiencing in that presentation. So if I'm giving a presentation to my boss and I notice that I'm shaking, I could try to plow through it and pretend I'm not shaking and try to ignore it. Or I could just say, whew, wow, look at this. I might make a joke about it, or I might just go, ooh, way too much, had a little too much caffeine this morning, apparently. Or just say, gosh, you know what? It's been a while since I've stood up. I've always had kind of an aversion to public speaking. Bear with me here. You see, what you're doing is you're taking the fuel out of the fire that you're experiencing. Now, again, this trembling and shaking, often what it is you had an experience in life and your mind and body decided in that moment that it did not want to have this experience again, and that this experience was dangerous. And so anytime that it finds you in a similar experience, you feel that rush of adrenaline and cortisol and everything else. It's essentially fight or flight. And so when you begin to teach your nervous system that it's actually okay to be in this situation, when you stop feeding the fire, your nervous system begins to recalibrate. It begins to reset. And this is powerful because you're allowing yourself to process old wounds, old hurts that no longer serve you. And for many of us, this can happen in an instant, or this can happen over time as things unfold and you see more and more. But always, the worthy pursuit is to begin to wake up to your experience. Wake up to how your thoughts and your feelings are creating your reality in every given moment.